Her profile made her seem like a typical girl in her 20s, into traveling, nightlife, and staying fit. After we shared our socials, I went off to locate my group again. Truth be told, whenever you hit it off with a random girl at a bar, chances are you'll never actually talk again after you exchange contact info. There's always that fake promise of staying in touch, but once you're sober, you just forget about it. But the next day, Saturday, I went out again with my friends, this time to a different place, kind of a bar and restaurant combo right on the waterfront. It was for my buddy Zoe's birthday. I posted something to my Instagram story while we were singing for her at the bar. About an hour after dinner, we were all hanging out in the outdoor patio area when I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. I turned to see Emily grinning and giving me a friendly handshake. She said this was one of her go-to Saturday night hangouts. This time, I gave Emily a proper introduction to my friends, saying, "You guys remember Emily, right?" Even though most of them hadn't spoken to her the night before, they had seen her around. As the night went on, Emily stuck around, which was fine. Everyone, including her, was buzzed, and it was just a good vibe all around. The next time I saw Emily was when she invited me to hit the golf course on a hot day. I'm not great at golf, but I've been wanting to get better at it, so when she asked me to come out one Sunday morning, I agreed. I think it was literally the weekend after we saw each other last. It was just the two of us. I tried to get a few of my friends to come along, but they were too hungover and complained it was too early. Emily and I ended up just vibing through 9 holes of golf. It took about 2 hours. Afterward, we grabbed something to eat, and then I headed home to chill before the start of the work week. I saw Emily one more time after that, when we were out drinking, and not long after, she invited me to go hiking in Arizona. Visiting Arizona and the Grand Canyon had always been on my list of must-sees. Once I cleared the dates with my job, I immediately said yes. I asked Zoe and a couple other friends if they wanted to come, but none of them could swing it. They gave the usual excuses: couldn't take time off, had to save money, etc. I asked Emily if any of her friends were tagging along, and she said, nope, it was just her. I hadn't actually met any of her buddies yet, but judging by her Instagram, the girl seemed super social, so I didn't think twice about it. We flew out on August 15th and had return flights booked for August 18th. We got in late at night, and Emily picked up a rental car. On the way to the Airbnb, we stopped for food and some drinks. By the time we got there, it was pretty late. We each had a couple beers once we got settled. I could tell Emily was in the mood to stay up, but I was honestly exhausted and just wanted to crash. That's when I realized there was only one bed in the Airbnb. I had never asked about the sleeping situation beforehand. When I brought it up, she pointed to the couch I was on and said, "It's a pull-out." Then she added that she wasn't even charging me for the Airbnb, so I should just chill. I figured a free stay in Arizona wasn't worth complaining about the couch. I pulled the mattress out, got the sheets set up, and went to sleep. It was actually more comfortable than I expected. Sometime during the night, I woke up to Emily walking through the living room to the kitchen to grab water. I'm a super light sleeper. Even the tiniest sound will wake me. I turned over and drifted off again. The next morning, Emily got me up early. It was a perfect sunny day, and we made our way straight to the Grand Canyon. I had no clue how enormous the Grand Canyon really was, or how many trail options existed. We hiked Bright Angel. I'm pretty sure that was the one. I didn't realize how out of shape I was until that moment. Emily seemed totally fine, cracking jokes and telling me to catch up, while I was drenched in sweat and gasping for air. We took lots of breaks, mainly to take an insane number of photos. It was breathtaking. which lasted 2 or 3 hours. We got back to the car. I was starving. We swung by a deli for food on the way back. The drive to Phoenix was long, and when we finally got back, we took a midday nap. Later, we wandered around the city, and, true to form with Emily, we ended up bar hopping again. I didn't know her super well, but it was already clear she loved her booze. We got completely hammered that night, though somehow I ended up more drunk, even though Emily was putting down drinks just as fast as me. We had to leave the rental car parked on the street and grabbed an Uber back to the Airbnb. It was super late. The next thing I remembered was Emily blasting music back at the place, and me plugging in my phone next to the couch before crashing out. At some point in the night, I woke up again. I had to pee like crazy, and my mouth felt like a desert. As I got up and started walking to the bathroom, I heard a creaking noise, like something heavy stepped on a loose board. I looked around the room in the dark, but didn't see anything. After relieving myself, I heard a door close. It had to be Emily's room. I tried her door, but it was locked. I knocked. No answer. I didn't think much of it and just returned to the couch. I was still tipsy, so I drifted off again quickly. I woke up the next morning around 8 a.m. with my head pounding. The first thing I noticed was that my phone wasn't where I left it. I had plugged it in on the floor next to the pull-out bed, but now it was sitting unplugged on the table next to me. I tried to figure out why I might have moved it, but just chalked it up to being super drunk. That day, hiking was off the table. I would have thrown up everywhere. Instead, we Ubered back to the car, then spent the day driving around and exploring various neighborhoods and outdoor attractions, like the botanical gardens. I wasn't really in the mood to drink, but Emily eventually talked me into it. So, of course, we ended up back at it, getting way too drunk again. Our flight was around 1 p.m. the next day, which was at least a relief since we didn't have to wake up too early. That night, we returned to the Airbnb sometime between 1 and 2 a.m., and Emily offered to let me sleep in the bed since it was my last night. I didn't argue. I took my bag into the room, said goodnight, and closed the door behind me. I didn't bother locking it. Not that it would have helped. The doorknob had one of those simple locks that could be popped open with something like a coin or a butter knife. I wish I could say the trip ended peacefully, and we flew back without any problems. But sometime that night, I woke up again, not really sure why. It was like I was startled awake by something I didn't fully hear, because I was still half asleep. I glanced around the room and reached for my phone, but it was gone. I had left it charging next to the bed, but now the cord was hanging off the wall with no phone in sight. I checked one side of the bed, then the other, and that's when I screamed. Emily was lying on the floor next to the bed, face down, like she had passed out cold. She lifted her head, disoriented, as if she just woke up. I shouted, "What are you doing?" She acted baffled, saying she must have come in while blacked out and forgotten I was there, so she crashed on the floor instead. But that didn't make any sense. She was on the far side of the bed, not even near the door. I accused her of taking my phone, and she tried to play it off. She told me to look under the bed. Maybe it fell. She immediately got down, peeked under, and said, "Girl, here it is," pulling it out like it magically ended up there. At that moment, I felt like I was looking at someone I didn't recognize anymore. Who was this girl? Had she really just tried to access my phone for the second time? I told her I'd just go sleep on the couch instead, but she insisted she would, so she left the room. You can bet I locked the door this time. If it was just her being drunk and goofy, I might have shrugged it off, but this, something was off. Despite still being buzzed, I managed to fall asleep again. But it didn't end there. I woke up one last time that night, and I immediately and started rubbing my foot. That's when I yelled at her to get out. She didn't move. I had to physically shove her off the bed and push her out of the room. I grabbed my stuff and started throwing everything into my bag. Clothes, toiletries, everything. She didn't say a single word. She just sat there on the couch, upright, watching me silently like some kind of lifeless NPC. I called for an Uber to the airport. I wasn't staying another minute. She didn't even try to stop me. I arrived at the terminal just as the sun started to rise. As hard as I tried, I couldn't sleep. My brain was spinning. I waited there until it was time to board and paid like $35 just to change my seat so I wouldn't be next to Emily. I looked out the window the entire boarding process so I wouldn't have to make eye contact. I didn't tell anyone until later that day. I needed time to process what had happened. When I finally told my friends, a few of them said, "Told you that girl was weird," pointing out how both times we saw her out, she was alone. That made me think, what if the only reason she showed up at the outdoor bar that day was because she saw my Instagram story and followed me there? That's stalker territory. I blocked her number and her Instagram. But before that, I went to one of her older posts where she was with other girls. No one was tagged, but I checked the comments and found one from a girl who seemed to be in the photo. Emily didn't follow her, and vice versa. I sent the girl a DM asking if she still hung out with Emily. She replied within 10 minutes saying, "Nah, girl's a weirdo. Get away." She then told me her own story and said other girls had cut Emily off too. The girl removed the tag of herself from that post, but said she couldn't force Emily to delete the picture. She wasn't even a little surprised when I shared what happened in Arizona. Her response, "Girl should be locked up." It blew my mind. I thought Emily was just a chill girl looking for a buddy, but she turned out to be someone far more disturbing. And I still wonder, what exactly was she trying to find on my phone?